I'm Steve. I'm a grad student at the University of Vermont, and I am helping with an evaluation of the M3 program, kind of what worked, what didn't work as well, so that we can use that information to inform like future M3 classes and programs. So do y'all have any questions before we get started?
What has happened at Hazen is part of an evolution of this work. It's 4 years we've been working on how to effectively implement M3. So M3 stands for mindset, metacognition, and motivation. Mindset is a theory and an entire set of research that affirms that each and every person has the capacity to learn. Metacognition are very concrete strategies. It's learning about your learning. And motivation are factors which students can begin to understand in their setting, rigor, relevance, relationship, and shared responsibility that matter and that they can control.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started here. We're going to jump right in. Today we are doing a presentation with our Up for Learning crew, Communicating School Redesign. We have 4 students here that are going to present to you. Dylan McAllister, Russell Shoplin, Rylan O'Connell, and Clara Lee Smith. So could you give them a round of applause?
Awesome, thank you. As Mike said, we're communicating school redesign. I'm just going to explain that for a minute.
I'm Rylan O'Connell. I'm a junior here, and this is my first year in communicating school redesign, and I'm doing it because I believe that these are changes that can really make a significant impact in our school system that students need to know about for that to happen.
This pilot at Hazen was born from their Communicating School Redesign survey. And there's a section in that survey that asks about mindset. Do you believe that all students have the ability to learn? And that data kind of revealed that there were some room to grow.
All right, if we could come back together, please. Thank you.
What you see on the screen, and you also have a handout, this sort of breaks down growth mindset in a way that's meant to be comprehensible and easy to understand.
Growth mindset is the idea or the belief that your own capacity of your brain is unlimited, that you can constantly adapt and change, and that your intelligence can grow. It's about expectations that teachers have of students and their performance, and then we'll talk about how that connects with mindsets and what we're going to be talking about today.
What we wanted to show was the extent to which teachers' expectations could actually affect pupils' intellectual performance, for example, their IQ scores. As you might expect, if more is expected of the kid is praised more. So those are the 4 factors: climate, input, response opportunity, and feedback.
To some partner and discuss the prompt of a story or some learning experience when someone had either a high or a low expectation of you.
Their core job as being trainers and teachers of their peers around mindset, metacognition, and motivation. But they've also taken a bigger role in working with the faculty.
So if you want to take a minute to look this over and find a word or phrase or sentence that really stands out to you, and then you're going to work with someone and you're each going to share for a minute, and it would be great if people could mix up and maybe move around and talk to people they don't talk to a lot, or like middle school and high school teachers, or
It's important to develop shared language and relationship and trust. And I think when you use students as messengers that are leading this faculty meeting, it becomes a very real and exciting thing that the faculty see a purpose and see students leading, inspiring conversation about a concept that they may or may not be familiar with.
You can hear me clap once. You can hear me clap twice. You can hear me clap 3 times.
So what we want to do here at Hazen is we really want to nurture these growth mindsets. We really want to make it possible for students to maybe transition from a more fixed mindset to a more growth mindset. And going back to what they were just talking about, with our demographic, that could make a huge difference in terms of test scores. And also, it really helps lay down the foundations for what we're going to be doing with Act 77 and what we're going to be doing with PLPs. Because if you don't believe that you can learn, then having an experience where you have to take charge of your learning is not really going to be as valuable as it could be with a growth mindset.
So we've got next Friday for a training day, right?
Is that the day?
Yeah, next Friday. Erin's gonna try to help get a place set and food all ready to go. We'll have the 10 activities and, yeah, it's a lot more. What do you think?
Dylan and Helen have been working together to compile a set of 20-minute activities that the Hazen team can then implement in their student-teacher advisories.
Today is really about just preparing them for that. The TSA activities module that we're making is really going to be perfected today. Hopefully, through the process of perfecting that with us, they get more ownership of, around being able to be facilitators, because we know that if somebody can't really own an initiative, they can't really make it successful. So today, we're giving them the tools to become good facilitators on that. It's like 80% about what we know that the brain has come in the last 20 years. And we need to share the information with students, because once they have that information, they can make really good decisions about their own learning.
The time frame that we have this spring is 5 weeks, so there's 5 that we've pulled out that are going to be the ones that we go through, but you have all 10 here in a draft form.
Like, is it progressive, or are they just sort of
Yeah, they're definitely progressive. We're just going to be really clear about what process we're going to go through, and then there'll be a period afterwards where we'll talk about that specific activity, how to facilitate it, what's going to happen before and after that activity, and stuff like that. Okay, so how this is going to work is I'm just going to like put a cloak over my face, and we're just suddenly, you're going to be a TSA and I'm going to be a student facilitator, so like switch. All right, hello everyone. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be coming into your TA and telling you a little bit about how your brains work. Over the next couple weeks, we'll be giving you strategies and opportunities to think about your own thinking. To introduce that concept, we're going to show you a video.
Cognition is the realm of thinking. Metacognition is the realm of thinking about thinking.
How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, every time we think in a certain way, it becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. And this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature.
But it's just a really simple idea of how that brain is changing for you to be able to do that activity.
I think that kind of mental switch of, I can't do this, I'm not particularly good at this, to I can actually draw, I can actually do all of this stuff, was a really important mental switch for me, and that was a new mental pathway that I was rewiring.
And you're going to choose one word, phrase, or sentence that sticks out to you, and we're going to share out why.
I think, as an adult, we can only suggest or think so much, but to draw on their wisdom about what works, what language makes sense, was amazing and inspiring.
It turns out that just understanding that your brain is able to constantly learn actually increases your ability to learn, because I feel like that does a good job of summarizing the entire text.
A fixed mindset is one that believes that intelligence is set, that thought by itself inhibits learning. So I think it's kind of, you count yourself out from the opportunity to achieve something before you've even tried.
Which one is the rewording?
At the beginning you said make some better decisions about your learning, and I would rephrase that because I think
it implies that we're here because people haven't been making good decisions about their learning, and having another presentation because adults think students haven't been making good decisions is like the last thing people want. I think it's less like, instead of like making better decisions, it's like so you can like be more informed about your learning and like go farther and like do everything you want to
I
do.
think it's important to specify that like this is to track progress, not to like have the teacher stare at the screen and interpret your feelings. I feel like that can
Don't necessarily like push so hard to be like an effective learner, because I feel like for some kids they're like, oh, it's another one of these things. I feel like just be like, it's gonna be really interesting to see like where you're at in a few weeks from now. And I feel like make it like that intriguing thing. Like you can't, like you could have a thought now and a thought in 3 weeks and not be able to really see the difference. But if you like write this down, you're gonna like see the progress.
We've really just kept things really open and wanted to get your perspective on what the best way to go about what we're doing is. And I think you guys have helped craft that really well.
We should change the way that this works, or just a couple of minutes ago we were talking about combining different steps in the way that we facilitate things, so that we're combining the challenge with the Brain Smart learning tips, and that's as a result of a discussion that we had as a group. So yeah, we're definitely influencing the curriculum that we're teaching.
And if this is like the foundation for how people think about like themselves and their learning, we want to make it the best we can, even if that means changing details or rewriting entire parts or like just changing the entire like foundation we have down. Like I think it's worth it in this process.
I sort of find myself thinking like, do they have the confidence to be able to be like independent people and go into the classrooms and really know these activities well? But they've more than surpassed my expectations.
Okay, so this is an infographic that we created. And basically this is sort of about growth and fixed mindset and about how your brain works, just boiled down into one sheet of paper. So I'm going to pass this out, and you're going to take a few minutes reading it and underline something that stood out to you or that was important to you or you had a question about, and then we're going to go around and talk about it.
Underline where it said, if you see I can't, you won't.
Great, okay, thanks. Well,
I said the same thing as Devin, but I also underlined say I just haven't gotten it yet as like the correct way to.
I chose a lot of the same things that they did, but I also chose pathways get stronger with repeated use, just like your muscles when you work out.
cool, and it's like that video we watched too,
Yeah.
where it showed one pathway. So this is the self-talk bridge. This is fixed mindset, this is growth mindset. And so it's about rewriting those self-talk scripts, which is something that's sort of been an ongoing theme when you approach problems with a growth mindset and when you approach them with a fixed mindset. And it's okay if you approach them with a fixed mindset because that's a really understandable thing and that's something a lot of people do a lot of the time, and that's fine. But it's just about seeing that and knowing that if I change this to a growth mindset, I can really help myself. Getting into this mindset really can make you approach problems in a better way and have more success.
What's exciting about M3 is how they both introduced activities, but also validated that this mattered. Like this was real, this was valuable, it wasn't fluffy. It had purpose, and their belief in it was all the difference in terms of watching the students then respond.
So, do you work on cars? Do you like doing that? So often, the reason people bring slow cars in is because they have issues with it, right? And so it's your job to figure out what that is. And I was trying to start my memoir and I couldn't figure out how to get it started, and I was having trouble thinking about myself as a writer. And then what was a time this week when you faced a problem but it was something you really enjoyed doing? Yeah.
What we have at hand here is accessible and deeply meaningful and life-changing. That's our passion, to be able to give that and have students give that to one another, the best of all worlds.
So that's about it. So the papers I gave you are the opportunities for the week, so that's like what the next blog post is going to be about. So I'm going to put this poster over there, and then this is something that you can keep with you and keep in mind so that you can work on it throughout the week, or at least sort of keep that present in your mind. Okay, great. Thanks, Deb.
that? Claire says she's gonna hurt me.
Over water.
You are so awesome. Like,
Whoa.
just like how this
Email her.
I don't know.
All right, first question I have is, can you talk about some things that you feel like worked well with M3 program and curriculum based on your personal observations and experiences with it?
Okay, so I'll open. So I think the program was a really exciting one that was like a good idea to introduce to students, and I feel personally I can really get behind it, and I'm excited for it. I felt it was really hard to get the students enthused about it and like really buy into it, but I figured kind of like persevere through like that awkwardness and silence, and sometimes I brought in like what I personally witnessed in my life change as I became more immersed in the research and the program itself, because the way they're learning, I'm still learning too. I'm just like a little bit ahead of them, so I can share that. So yeah.
I think the part of the process where we, as a group, vetted everything that we were going to be presenting to them was useful because we come at it with a really different perspective. I was working with one kid about growth mindset, and he was like, I don't know where this applies in my life, and he was wearing like a mechanics shirt, so I was like, okay, so you like mechanics, right? Like, this is a cool part of your life. Like, if you were, like, no experience, you were to, like, walk into a shop or something and you saw a car, would you know what was wrong with it? And he'd be like, no, that's not a thing you do. And I was like, right, so you have to troubleshoot, you have to like work through it and everything, and like sort of think of different problems and like be in that mindset of like, this isn't going to come to me immediately, but I'll get it.
Now having experienced it, are there skills or things that you would have liked to have had in the training that would have helped circumvent those tough spots, or was a day enough?
That's an important part of it. I think that's something we all sort of did, but it wasn't really recognized in the beginning, that like, this is sort of the guideline, but read the room. Like, do what you need to do to make sure that it's engaged and relevant, and you're not like standing up there doing some ready-made curriculum that doesn't make sense to you. Right. And so there are all parts of it that I think we sort of modified or skipped or like changed or like had to make some decisions about what we were going to get to that day and what we weren't. And that was really important. I think it's just like, make sure it's clear that that's a thing you can do and a thing you should do.
But like a student can step in and like suddenly they're leading the class, and I think that's like an exciting opportunity for them to like grow in the subject and grow as like a person and a learner.
That really spoke true like to my experience with this. So every time that I come in contact with like any mindsets or like anything in this program, I learn something again, and I learn even more when I'm telling people about it.
Echoing what Dylan said, how the more I taught these ideas and these concepts, that like I saw them show up in my life, and like not like necessarily in very like clear ways other people can perceive, but in my head I'll be like trying to attempt a task, and like, but I'm like, no, focus on the positive. Like, you can absolutely do this as long as you believe you can. Like, don't count yourself out before you've tried. And like, I've actually personally seen positive results from that, so that was pretty satisfying in itself.
I think that's definitely true, and I think it was also really, really valuable for the kids to see that other kids were doing the activities and were leading the activities, because that's not something that really happens here a lot or in any school. So
after hearing everything people have said here, I've become like really excited to try new things. I hope we're doing this all again next year, because like there's so much I want to do differently now, and like so many new things I want to try and experiment with, hopefully at a high rate of success.